Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Subspace Developer Sync. We're going to go around the team and get updates on what everybody's working on. We're going to be following the new format we started last week, where we're going to start with core protocol, then go into the execution layer, then the R&D team, and then we're going to go into the product team. All right, so let's start off with core protocol. Nazar, if you'd like to kick us off, please.
Yeah, last week we've been primarily preparing to the upcoming network launches, stress tests in particular, and we were launching some test networks to see how it works. There were some issues discovered, we fixed them, we tested a few times. Today will be the next test, and we've also did some cleanup on the monorepo side. In particular, we've deleted everything related to Gemini 1. And we have also made some breaking changes. For instance, we had my exploit size configured in pieces. Now it's in bytes everywhere. And generally, I think we are in a pretty good shape. We'll see how it goes.
Awesome. Thanks, Nazar. And are you working on anything in particular this week?
I was working on those problems. I have updated pull request upstream for Substrate. And we'll see what the feedback there is. And I think we'll be planning some new networking related work with TSN.
Cool. Okay, Shamil, you're up next, please.
Sure. Last week I added object mapping handler to the farmer. Also, I tried 2 algorithms for adding connection limits to the networking rate. The last algorithm was approved and merged. I started to gather information about a more complex version of sync, and this week I will most likely continue with it. That's it.
All right, thanks, Shamil. Any questions? Okay, Yvonne, can you go next, please?
Yeah, sure. So during the last week, I was mainly focused on delivering the RTDB migration from the RocksDB. So it's actually in the review now. Apart from that, I'm doing like another take on including the object mappings route into the block header. So it's almost done. It's just that I'm finishing up like checks and that kind of things. So I hope to send PR today. Yeah, that's it on my end.
All right, any questions for Yvonne? All right, let's move on to the execution layer. So on my side with that, I was working over the weekend mostly on finalizing some of the loose ends, I guess you could say, in the planning and the documentation around formalizing the security and the scalability aspect of it, or I guess how this will scale as we go into sharding. How domains and sharding kind of interact. And then also, mainly, I guess, how it interacts with the storage, the DSN, and how some of the palettes which now exist on the primary chain will exist on the secondary chain. So it's not complete, but I have a much better overall idea of how it's fitting together, and I'll be reviewing that with Nazar this week and with the execution team as well. So we've made a good bit of progress there. Overall, we are going to be focusing this week and probably next week within sort of the domains team more on the primary chain, the secondary chain, and just some of the communication between the core domains. We're going to stop some of the other work we've been doing around the messaging, like cross-domain messaging and cross-chain messaging side of things, and just really focus on getting the core engine working and hopefully starting to do some implementation work by the end of next week. That's kind of the current plan. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. Li-Cheng, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Last week on the domains side, I finished a preliminary version of the reverse domain design doc. I also looked into a thinking issue discovered in the pre-stress test stage, and is probably related to the substrate request response protocol configuration. And it has been reported to the substrate upstream. So far, no solid progress though. I was also debugging a test failure found in an upcoming PR of Nazar. Although we have figured out how to fix this test failure, I still have some confusions I'm not certain about. My confusion is not a blocker to merge it. Feel free to push it forward. I can check it in parallel. The changes in that PR make sense in general, even though it's kind of tricky itself. This week, the Mango will be continuing the reverse domain doc, revise and hopefully finalize the pilot executor registry and pilot domain registry. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Li Cheng. And you'll be at the next call so we can dive into some of those issues you found a little bit deeper around the sync, right?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Any questions for Li Cheng? All right, Vit, you're up next.
Hey everyone. Last week, mostly focused on building a design block for core payments, as well as working. I've also worked a little bit on how to track the state roots of this system domain on the core domain sites, so that we can verify proofs on each other. Post that, did a bit of research based on our conversations with Jeremiah and Lucian last week on the off-chain workers. Not positive on the off-chain workers yet. There are some hidden issues, but I'll discuss that in the integration sync. And then I had a bit of time to clean up the Lightline state bound. So that was the last one that I wanted to get it done for the verification. So that was a small one. That's also landed. This week, focus on finishing up the design draft for core messages. Was that I'll most likely pick up anything that comes out of the integration sync, apart from the core messages that's happening tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Vit. For the Light client, let's just freeze any additional development on that because it's going to change significantly as we go into the next major upgrade to consensus. Does that work for you, Nazar? Was there anything else outstanding that needed to be done there?
Yeah, there were just small cleanups that Van did when he wasn't super busy with other stuff, but we do not plan any further changes.
Okay, great. Okay, and then on the core messages, let's hold on that one for now. Let's just work on the palette messenger instead. That's going to be internal to all of the domains. The core messages is more about cross-domain communication, which I think we're going to have to wait maybe another week or two to continue efforts there.
Okay, then I'll start putting down all the findings for the relayer, and maybe we can discuss that tomorrow.
Great, sounds good. And I set up a one-on-one with you for Wednesday as well. Great. Okay. All right. Any questions for Vit from the group? Okay, moving on to R&D. I did quite a bit of work on Friday on the consensus upgrade that we have been working on, and I'm pretty sure that we have nailed down everything now. We just need to go through a review, another stage of internal review and specification, definition, and then do another stage of external review. But I think that we finally sorted it out for the most part. And I did share that document with a few people earlier. Okay, Daria, do you want to go next?
So I was mostly for the end of last week studying and doing benchmarks on the Chia proof of space. I believe that you, Jeremiah, have seen those benchmarks. And then I was through the weekend and today reading more on the way we could do commitments instead of Merkle trees. And I believe this week I will look at the things that you wrote and try to update the specification with those so we can review it more fundamentally.
Thank you, Daria. Any questions? Okay. One other note, I guess mainly for Oskin as well, is I also have put together a collection of resources mainly around the relationship between erasure codes and polynomial commitments. They actually have mathematical relationships or properties they share, which some protocols are starting to leverage. This is actually something that we're going to be doing as well. It's just very, very intense math to understand how all this stuff works. It's kind of like ZK snarks in a way. It's like magical and hard to really understand what it does, but it is something that we're going to need to be cognizant of and really think hard about how we're going to incorporate this into the next version of the protocol. So if you could try to dive into some of that stuff in your free time, Oskin, I think you'll probably find it very interesting.
Of course.
Okay. All right, moving on. Arthur, let's move on to the product team.
Hey, okay, so some updates from our partner. So last week, Wallet, which is our wallet partner, they released 0.5.6. This has official support now, so you guys can check it out. It's a great experience. I talked about it on our hours last week, so that's amazing. We're in talks with a development initiative, so that's still in progress.
Hey, Arthur, you're coming in really choppy. Maybe you want to try just video or audio only.
Sorry, can you guys hear me now? This is better?
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah, so Subwallet just released 0.5.6. That has official Subspace network support, so check their extension and the website. We are working with the development team right now to kind of push forward our block explorer development, so that's still in progress. More to be posted. Last week, we finally have all of our Windows certs working, so a lot of the pull requests on desktop is now working. Subspace monorepo also has those certs updated as well, so let me know if there's any issues. Additionally, we'll be starting to shift a little bit of focus towards telemetry improvements this week and so forth. This is going to be important as we start going into stress test. And then finally, we're going to start doing some high-level discussions about like our work towards the CLI wrapper. That's it on my end. Hope that came through okay.
Yeah, that was better. Thanks, Arthur. All right. Any questions for Arthur? Okay. Serge, you're up next.
Yeah, so on my end, a little bit of everything this week. So on desktop, I was mostly wrapping up feature development for the upcoming audit and testing with Gemini 2. Yeah, there was an issue created on Subspace JS repository. Apparently, one of the candidates was trying to play with it and had some problems. So I did some investigation. So one of the issues was that he didn't expose like a farmer port. So I added a note in the README. And there were also issues with some of the examples. Probably it's a bit outdated by now. So I submitted a small PR to fix one of the examples with the React application, and I will also check a few others. And I also created a bunch of other issues that I would like to address in the future. And we had some discussions with Arthur on telemetry. I did some research. First, I did some exploration of the repository for substrate telemetry and did some research what can be improved for our purposes, specifically rendering of the node components in case we want to have all 25,000. Yeah, that's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Serge. Sounds like you're doing a lot of different things. Appreciate all the flexibility there. Any questions from the group? Okay, Özkan, you're up next.
Couple of things. So first of all the PRs for Subspace desktop is merging. One only left, which is the rotating locks. I have done all the testings on my end. Seems promising to me. We had a discussion with Ivan and Nazar about what should be the parameter for storing how many days about the rotating logs. After we finalize that discussion, I'm waiting for an answer from them. We can merge that, and I believe there won't be any PRs left to merge for the desktop. And we tested the desktop for the first time truly for the syncing, thanks to the new testnet we are deploying. And I had to update the dependencies for that, but in short, everything went well, and Subspace desktop is able to fully sync, plot, and farm for our new stress testnet. And we only did test it on macOS. I did the test. Serge also did the test. Both worked on our machines. So far, we hadn't any issues related to cross-platform related to syncing or plotting or farming. So although I cannot promise, I'm fairly confident that it will not be buggy on Windows or Linux as well. But we still need to test it because there are, again, as I mentioned, this test was done before these new PRs were merged. So my suggestion is after merging the rotating logs PR, which is the only remaining one, we should do another test on macOS and Linux and Windows. Then I believe the desktop will be ready for the upcoming audit. Other than that, we had a discussion with Arthur on the new possible CLI application for the wrapper for Node and Farmer. I prepared a draft for him on the what could be the functionalities and structure of that new CLI app, and reviewed some PRs. That's all on my end. And this week, I plan to work on the new version of the stress test, so I had to update the desktop for it. And then, as you mentioned, Jeremiah, for the free time, I will look on this erasure coding and polynomial components.
Awesome, Özkan. Sounds like you're doing a lot of different things as well.
I have a small question for Özkan. I'm sorry, Jeremiah.
Yeah,
just a small question. Özkan, what log level do you use for rotating logs?
Sorry, can you repeat?
What log level do you use for your rotating logs?
It depends. Info for everything, but for the farmer, we use debug, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Özkan, how soon can we have, or do you have everything you need, I guess, rather, to get the desktop up to the latest version of the stress test? Is there anything blocking that right now?
Yeah, I just learned that like before this meeting, so I have to think on that. Probably updating the chain spec and updating the farmer code should be enough. But if there is something coming along in, like, I don't know, we will see.
There is just a force push to the same branch, so if you pull the latest changes from there, it should work.
Okay.
Chain spec and decon phase.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Arthur, Özkan, let's make that a priority to get that compatibility with the latest stress test as soon as possible, please.
Sure.
Okay.
And an announcement once it's ready in the product channel and the general channel for the team to know. Okay. The other thing, glad to hear that you're working on the wrapper CLI. If you guys don't mind sharing some of that in the product, yeah, I guess in the public Slack around the product so the rest of the team can have some visibility into that, that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, once we have something more formally written up, I'll be glad to share in the product channel.
Okay, great. All right. Any other questions for Özkan? Okay, anything else we need to discuss before we close out? Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll be hard at work for another week. There we go. All right, thanks guys and gals.